About 10 years ago, I was a broke-ass research assistant at one of DC's many think tanks. And I decided after having to choose between buying lunch for myself or putting gas in my car, I needed a second job. So like most desperate people, I turned to Craigslist. And I looked in the job board, and I didn't really find anything that matched my actual profession. So I decided for shits and giggles to go to the ETC page because, at least it would entertain me and I could look at like ads for foot fetish models or like, want to sell your hair, we'll buy. Like that kind of would make me feel better. But I found a posting that actually seemed like it would apply to me. And it was for a South Asian cultural attaché and research assistant. And I was like, I'm totally South Asian and I love culture and stuff. So that sounds good. So I sent in my resume, didn't really think about it, but the next day I actually got a call. And the call was from a guy who said that he was from the Washington World Group. They got my resume, they wanted to interview me. He says, would you like to speak to our founder and CEO? And I'm like, yes, that would be great. So a guy gets on the phone and he says, hello, Miss Gupta. Yes? Yes, my name is Baron Edward von Kloberg III. And I would like to ask you about your experience in South Asia, because you see, I am a very important man. I speak to many diplomats in the DC international community, and I need to know what's going on in South Asia, in the local events, so that I can be up to speed when I speak to ambassadors and luminaries. And I'm just blown away. I'm like 24, and I'm like, this sounds great. Yeah, I could totally do that. And he says, and you yourself, you are South Asian. I said, yeah, I was born in India. I grew up here, but yeah, I'm Indian. And he goes, oh, yes, I love India. I got my favorite ivory-tipped cane from India. And I'm like, am I talking to Mr. Peanut? Like, he's just like, I'm imagining a guy on the other end of the line, like with a monocle and a top hat, and he's like, I like South Asia. So I just didn't really know what to expect from this, but he said the job paid $20 an hour, and I'm like imagining all the sandwiches I can buy with $20 an hour. Like I can buy socks like when I get one hole in them as opposed to like when they're like sock particles, sock molecules. And I'm like oh, this is awesome. So when he decides, he asks me to have an interview on Tuesday, I'm like, yes, that would be great. And my mind goes to these exotic places, like beyond socks and sandwiches, but like what I could do as a cultural attaché to give this man advice about South Asia. Maybe I can, help build schools in, the poorest parts of India, or maybe like, I don't know why, my mind went to like, I could help build an arboretum, and like my name will be on a plaque at an arboretum. Like it's just really random, like that was glamour to me, like trees and my name and like brass. And I was like, this is really an opportunity for me, and the $20 an hour is just so tempting. Like I barely am engaged at my job where I'm just behind a computer, and here like I can just brush shoulders with, I don't know, like famous rich people, I don't know, like people who are more important than me, so that was all that mattered. So I decided, I really want this job, and I did a lot of research that weekend. I Googled the guy's company, Washington World Group, and didn't really get anything but like a placeholder site. Then I looked on LexisNexis to just read about him, because it just sounded crazy, right? Like top hat, cane, whatever. But he exists. Baron von Kloberg showed up in LexisNexis. And, it said he's a lobbyist, and he does work in international circles. But then I noticed some like weird throwback names coming out that I was like really confused about. For example, Nicolae Ceausescu, Mobutu Sese Seko, and then there's Saddam Hussein, and I'm like, what? And then it turns out that these are his clients. This man is a lobbyist to dictators, okay? So he could create a boy band of like the most evil dictators in the world. Like the one dictator he couldn't touch was Gaddafi, actually, so don't feel bad, John, like he didn't get Gaddafi. But anybody else you can think of that like murdered millions of innocent people, like that was on his client roster. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like I'm gonna get, if I get $20 an hour like for sandwiches and socks, that's actually blood money. So I'm like, no blood for sandwiches. So I really had to think about it for a second though, because I was like, doesn't Saddam Hussein deserve representation? Like, doesn't he need friends? And then I'm like, wait, but I would be his friend. Like, I would be the guy who's like, hey, you know what's going on in South Asia right now? There's a great Bollywood movie. And he'd be like, awesome, like I'll bomb the theater. So I was like, no, this is obviously not, this is a no-go. Let's not do this. This is terrible. And I was like dry heaving at the computer because I was thinking like, I have this interview, you know, what do I do? And then I thought about the interview itself. I'm like, I can't even go because, you know, I'm probably there. It's like the personality fit, right? Like the guy's probably going to feed me live baby chicks or something, or like take me down the street and be like, punch that old lady in the face. And I'll be like, okay. You know, so it felt so amoral and so wrong. And the $20, the sandwiches, I was like, no, I can just not eat. That's a better option. So my solution was, two more things about this guy, Edward von Kloberg. His name is actually not Edward von Kloberg. He was born Edward Kloberg. But he decided to add Edward Van Kloberg, to sound more dignified, until one of his associates told him, no, Van is like the redneck indicator in Europe. You don't want to be a Van, you want to be a Von. So he decided to priss it up and become Edward von Kloberg, Baron Edward von Kloberg. The second thing is, in all these LexisNexis articles I had read, they'd mentioned, you know, that he had been interviewed and taken to task for how can he have such a terrible roster of clients? And he would say, shame is for sissies, which there are so many things wrong with that sentence, right? So I just don't go to the interview. And the next day, I get a call, and by the way, I gave him my work phone number, because in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, this is totally fine. Now, like, Saddam Hussein's best friend has my work phone number. And he calls me, and I pick up the phone not knowing, hi, this is Tija, you know, can I help you? Yes, Miss Gupta, did we have an appointment yesterday? Yes, we did. We did have an appointment. Do you think it's appropriate to miss out on an appointment and to waste somebody's time when you've made an appointment with somebody? And I said, I feel like you want me to apologize, but I also feel like you'd say shame is for sissies. So he goes, I understand. And he hangs up on me, and then my butt unclenches, and I'm like, is he gonna like chemical bomb my references? Like, what's gonna happen? I'm like trying to detach myself from the people I love most because I don't know what's going down. So, you know, it sucked. I did want a side job. There were plenty of other things I could do, I guess. But I was okay with it. It felt like a decent life choice. I was totally okay. 10 years later, I shop at Pottery Barn. I can buy you a sandwich if anybody wants a sandwich. I stand by it. It was my one small kind of like punch in the balls for the little person that, I can't be bought, and, all the glitz and glamour of DC just isn't going to be enough. So thank you.